In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. Now the main headlines. Dutch charge d'affaires in Iraq visits Imam Hussein Holy Shrine. Three Iraqi soldiers killed by a roadside bomb. Nigeria, 4,000 students to attend Islamic vacation course. Human rights breaches in China, Chad and Bahrain. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, dear viewers. This is Ayub Nouinou and you are watching Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV 3. The Dutch charge d'affaires in Iraq, Rokas Pronk, visited the holy shrine of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, in Karbala. Pronk and his delegation also toured the museum of the holy shrine. The Dutch official expressed humbleness and said he was honored to be able to visit the holy place. Millions of people visit this holy site every year and I feel proud to be among them today, he added. The Dutch envoy and the officials of the Imam Hussein Holy Shrine also talked about the projects being implemented by the Holy Shrine. Pronk said the Netherlands plays a major role in the construction of Iraq and provides assistance to the people of the country in different areas. The holy shrines of Imam Hussein and Abul Fadl Abbas, peace be upon them, in Karbala are among the most revered sites that attract millions of pilgrims from all over Iraq and other countries every year. A roadside bomb killed at least 3 Iraqi soldiers on Wednesday, north of the Iraqi capital Baghdad, the country's defense ministry announced. The soldiers were on duty when the explosion took place in the Tarmiya district, 30 kilometers or 20 miles outside of Baghdad, the capital. Along with 2 other soldiers, a lieutenant colonel was among the killed, the ministry said. 3 other soldiers were wounded by the bombing. Another security statement read, "The area is known as a safe haven for ISIS remnants due to its dense palm groves and orchards that is believed to be served as the militants' hideout." Although Iraqi forces announced the defeat of ISIS in 2017, the terror group still launches low-level insurgency against both security and civilian targets. About 4,000 Muslim students across Nigeria will next week attend this year's National Islamic Vacation Course in Kwara State. This was disclosed by the Chairman Council of Hosting Fathers, Elders and Mentors of the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria, Kwara State, Idris Abdullahi Harun, during a visit to the Emir of Ilorin, Al-Hajj Ibrahim Solo Gambari. He said the male participants would be camped at the Federal Government College, Ilorin, and their female counterparts at Queen Elizabeth School, Ilorin, the state capital. A member of the MSSN Board of Trustees, Professor Badmas Lanri Yusuf, said the program will commence on December the 22nd and end on December the 28th, 2022. The Secretary to the Council, Al-Hajj Ibrahim Abdullahi, assured the Emir that they are working with the security agencies to provide maximum security throughout the training camp. Let us remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Dutch charge d'affaires in Iraq visits Imam Hussein Holy Shrine. Three Iraqi soldiers killed by a roadside bomb. Nigeria, 4,000 students to attend Islamic vacation course. Also tonight, unable to return home, Rohingya risk their lives to leave refugee camps. Three resolutions have been recently adopted by the European Parliament on the respect for human rights in China, Chad and Bahrain. More details in the following report.
On Thursday, the European Parliament adopted three resolutions on the respect for human rights in China, Chad and Bahrain. In China, MEPs expresses their support for supporters fighting for fundamental rights who are being persecuted by the Chinese government, notably in the context of the zero COVID-19 policy. They are concerned about the violations of freedom of expression, association, assembly, press and media in China, intensified by the use of mass surveillance, and demand that human rights be guaranteed. The resolution calls for sanctions against those responsible for crimes against humanity to be intensified, for better coordination regarding Chinese overseas police service stations, and for addressing freedom of expression during official talks with China. In Chad, the parliament condemns the restriction of the fundamental right to demonstrate and the use of violence against pro-democracy protesters and civil society in Chad during the protests of October 2022. In the resolution, MEPs called for the protesters held by the Chadian government to be released and granted legal protection. They condemned their persecution in mass trials that failed to adhere to the international standards on transparency and justice. In Bahrain, the parliament demands the immediate and unconditional release of Danish Bahraini citizen Abdul Hadi Al-Khawaja and all other political activists. Al-Khawaja, who is a co-founder of the Bahrain Center for Human Rights, has been in prison for 12 years, serving a life sentence for leading peaceful protests during the 2011 Arab Spring protests for democratic reforms. MEPs strongly condemn the continued use of torture and mistreatment in the Gulf country. The moratorium on capital punishment, which had been in place until 2017, should never have been lifted. MEPs say Bahrain has executed 6 people since then, in what the UN has referred to as an extrajudicial killings, and 26 more are currently on death row in the country. The resolution was adopted by 316 votes in favour, 6 against, with 38 abstentions. Reporting Ahmed Faili.
And now we continue some short news. Many of the world's largest car manufacturers may be linked to the forced labour of Uyghurs, a Muslim minority group based in Xinjiang, China, according to new research from Sheffield Hallam University. Tesla, Volkswagen, General Motors, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and Stellantis, which includes brands like Fiat, Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep, were found to be at high risk for exposure to steel and aluminium processing factories that employ forced Uyghur labour, the researchers say. Car makers use steel and aluminium from China, which subsidizes production in the Xinjiang region to create car frames, wheels, brakes, and bodies, according to the researchers. They are also tied to Chinese manufacturers that produce copper and nickel, as well as tyres, interiors, batteries, and windshields for cars, researchers said. Working conditions in Xinjiang-based metal factories are utterly appalling. Kendall Saliso, one of the researchers involved in the study, told Insider. The report recommends governments enact laws that ban imports linked to forced labour and for car companies to end relationships with suppliers based in Xinjiang. More than 700,000 Afghan immigrants in Iran and Pakistan returned to Afghanistan. The United Nations Population Fund in Afghanistan announced that more than 727,000 Afghan refugees have returned to their country from Iran and Pakistan in the past 9 months. The United Nations Population Fund said Thursday that from January to October this year, 661,600 Afghan migrants returned to Afghanistan from Iran and 67,300 migrants from Pakistan. At least 15 people were injured on Thursday during a clash on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border between the security forces of the two countries, media outlets reported. The incident escalates tension days after another border clash between the two sides that left 7 dead and 27 injured. Those wounded were all civilians, including women and children, a security official said on condition of anonymity. The Ahlul Bayt Center, peace be upon them, affiliated to Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi, in Majunga, Madagascar, is preparing to hold the 10-day Fatimid mourning ceremony. The ceremony will begin on the 19th of December until the 27th of the same month. Sheikh Nasir, one of the instructors at the center, has called on the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, in the city to join the mourning ceremony to commemorate the martyrdom anniversary of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, peace be upon her. An Islamic group, Fityanul Islam of Nigeria, has launched a 500 million Nigerian Naira fund to build an orphanage and skills acquisition center in Zaria, Kaduna State. Speaking at the launch on Thursday in Abuja, the group's National Secretary, Mansour Salihu Nakande, said the center was planned to accommodate about 5,000 orphans from different parts of the country. He said through the orphanage and training center, the group aimed to produce well-mannered Muslims that are skilled and self-reliant. He said the country's prevailing security problem had displaced and orphaned thousands of children, and if not well managed, the situation would continue to degenerate. The vice presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Kashim Shettima, commended the Islamic group for the initiative. He said the establishment of the center would help in imparting a great deal of Islamic knowledge and skills to the youth, especially orphans. Senator Shettima announced a donation of 25 million Nigerian Naira to the center by the APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu. About 2,000 of the ethnic minority Rohingya Muslims sailed from Bangladesh, Myanmar this year due to deteriorating circuses, UNHCR says. More detail in the following report.
Human rights defenders are seeing a surge in potentially deadly boat journeys by Rohingya refugees as they try to reach different countries in Southeast Asia where they can access food, school and jobs. Many of the stateless people have grown desperate because they see no hope of being repatriated in Myanmar, which is convulsed in violence following the February 2021 military coup, rights advocates and NGOs in the region said. The Rohingya cannot work or educate their children properly at refugee camps in neighbouring Bangladesh, where they are prohibited from leaving the camp's confines. Rohingya are stranded at sea, pleading for help, according to an advisor to Myanmar's opposition National Unity Government, who tweeted Thursday what he identified as a recording of a phone call from a Rohingya aboard a boat. Our children have been without food for 4 to 5 days. We are all suffering from hunger, so please help us reach the shore, the caller said. According to a translation provided by a Rohingya in a Bangladesh refugee camp, a 3-year-old child on board died from starvation. The rest of us are alive, but we ran out of food completely. We are seeing a dramatic rise of Rohingya taking dangerous journeys by boat this year. At the end of November, at least 4 boats carrying Rohingya refugees left Bangladesh to attempt to reach Southeast Asian shores. Lilian Fan, co-founder of Gyunte Foundation, a regional humanitarian organization based in Kuala Lumpur, told Benar News, the prosecution and persecution by the military junta has been pushing the people to flee Myanmar for decades now. The lack of food, clean water, plus the inability to exercise their fundamental rights are some of the reasons that Rohingyas are fleeing Bangladesh.
The UN Security Council has warned that the threat of terrorism has increased and become more diffuse in various regions of the world, aided by new technologies. It strongly condemned the flow of weapons, military equipment, drones and explosive devices to ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists and their affiliates. The presidential statement, approved by all 15 council members, was adopted at the end of an open meeting on counter-terrorism, chaired by External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar of India, who called terrorism an existential threat to international peace and security. In the presidential statement, which is a step below a resolution, the Security Council expressed grave concern that terrorists are raising and transferring funds in a variety of ways, including abusing legitimate businesses and non-profit groups, kidnapping for ransom and trafficking people, cultural items, drugs and weapons. The Council urged the 193 UN member states to prioritize countering terrorist financing. It also said terrorist groups craft distorted narratives that are based on the misinterpretation and misrepresentation of religion to justify violence and use names, religion or religious symbols for propaganda, recruitment and manipulation of followers. To tackle this, the Council called for counter-narratives promoting tolerance and coexistence. The statement said combating terrorism requires governments and the whole of society to cooperate in increasing awareness about the threats of terrorism and violent extremism and effectively tackling them. We have reached the end of today's Shia Waves show. Let's remind our viewers of today's headlines. Dutch Charge d'Affaires in Iraq visits Imam Hussein Holy Shrine. Three Iraqi soldiers killed by a roadside bomb. Nigeria, 4,000 students to attend Islamic vacation course. Human rights breaches in China, Chad and Bahrain. Unable to return home, Rohingya risk their lives to leave refugee camps. Terrorist threat rising using new technologies, the United Nations warns. You can view the latest news on Shia Waves website, and you can send news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Please contact us on the number at the bottom of the screen. This is the end of today's news, and thank you all for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the month of our time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ولله الأسماء